How are you, ladies and gentlemen? Thank you for being available and welcome to this genetics lesson today. And I'm going to be your presenter, Mr. Walter Omosaki Bagindi. Welcome and please purpose to listen and get the whole story about genetics. Okay, to begin with, we'll start with the lesson objectives, and at the end of the lesson, I expect each and every one of us to be able to define genetics as a scientific discipline and give reference to nature. In nature, we have so many observations that we can make about plants and animals that give us a lot of information about the genetics that we are going to study. Secondly, you should be able to explain the technical terms used in the study of genetics. Then you should be able to explain the methodology used by the father of genetics, who is Gregor Mendel. And lastly, you should be able to explain the success of Mendel's experiments. What are the attributes? What are the merits that enabled Mendel to succeed in coming up with the marvelous genetics principles? Thank you, and please be attentive. In the introductory part, I want us to look at a few observations here and there in nature, and all of us have seen the similarities and differences across species and among members of the same species. I hope we are all aware of the difference between a species and a population, but then within a species you realize that there are differences in height, in weight, in skin color and so forth. In plants you see the types of flowers, the types of leaves, and etc. And these all are as a result of inheritance, which is the basis of genetics. And the phenomenon is not restricted to plants only or animals, but it occurs all over, including in microorganisms, and it is responsible for the various characteristics and variations in the animals, plants, and microorganisms. And we realize that in certain species there are patterns of inheritance, and they take place, and they are repetitive, and we can always say that this pattern is specific for these animals. For example, sex, we can only have either male or female. And in flowers, for a given species, we can only have a certain type of flowers or a certain type of leaf pattern, but not in the other species. And this one occurs across the animal kingdom, the plant kingdom, and also among the microorganisms. And these observations are the basis, or the what made Mendel curious when he was studying, or rather when he was in his garden, when he was looking at the way the pea plant was behaving, because the pea plant is the one he studied in detail to be able to come up with the current Mendel's laws of inheritance. For the sake of all of us, I thought it is wise to look for a picture of the garden plant so that we can all be sure of what we're talking about. Rather, we can be on the same level of understanding. I know some of us have eaten peas. Oh, well, when I was going through this, I thought that it would be wise for me to get a plant or rather a picture of the garden pea plant, which the botanist called Pisum sativum, so that we can all be sure of the plant we are talking about, because this is the plant that Mendel studied extensively to be able to come up with the data that he statistically analyzed to form the basis of the Mendelian principles of genetics of this day. On your left side is the flowering plant, and you can see the flowers, and then you can see the leaves, how it's arranged, and on your right side you can be able to see the flowering, rather the fruit of the pea plant, or rather the pod, and you can see three young pods, and the type of arrangement of the leaves, the flowers, and the type of shape of the pod, and the height of the plant are the characteristics that Gregor Mendel observed over a long time, and collected a lot of data which he statistically analyzed to come up with the Mendelian principles of genetics, which have been held true to this date. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and we look forward to get to know more about Mendel's experiments and the genetics principles.